Hello and welcome to the Week 2 lecture for BADM 236. We're going to be talking this week about fact and inference. It says 4 there on the screen, but bear with me. Here are our objectives for this lecture. We're going to define fact and inference. We're also going to look at the characteristics of facts and inferences. And then we'll talk a bit about standards that we use to determine facts. How do the two work together? Because sometimes they do. And then how do we distinguish inference from fact? An important part of this lecture. So, what is a fact? Well, a fact comes from the Latin factum, meaning to be, something that's done. A fact is something known with certainty to exist or have existed. A fact can be verified through experience, through observation, through testing, through measurements, through testimony, and also through records. A fact is something that people can usually agree is real and true. And as has been said in the past about truth, in that truth is that which most corresponds to reality, the same can be said for fact. Fact is that which most corresponds to reality. Verifying of facts is important for us. Data are not considered facts until their existence of truth can be verified by reliable sources. And the emphasis here is on reliable sources because there are plenty of unreliable sources out there more than willing for you to believe their version of what is true and what is not, or what is fact, based on their own agenda. Verification comes from direct observation, witness testimony, records, documentation, and also testing. So look at the following statements down below. And what I want you to do is to pause the recording and write down your answers to how you would verify the following as facts. So go ahead and stop here for a few minutes and write these down. Characteristics of facts. And one of the first things we have to note is that facts are not absolutes. The fact of the matter is that we live in a physical universe that's constantly changing, and our own understanding of the universe is changing. So what we knew to be true 10 years ago may not be true today. Science is constantly growing, evolving, and our understanding is growing, maturing. So understand that facts don't mean that something has to be an absolute, or you might also call it a universal truth. Facts can also be either objective or subjective. An objective truth is something that can be measured, can be verified, it can be validated. Subjective, or let me continue on with the objective, objectives are typically universally true. That means they can be generalized from one situation to another. Subjective facts might be something like this. My favorite ice cream is mint chocolate chip. That's a fact. But it's subjective. It's my experience, not anybody else's. So it may be true for me, but it's not going to be true or generalizable for everybody else. Another characteristic of facts is that feelings can be factual, but we have to be careful when we're interpreting feelings, because we can be deceived by our own feelings, and we can be deceived by the feelings of others, or the manipulation of our feelings, either by ourselves and the experience that we're having, or other people wanting to get us to feeling what they want us to. Facts themselves can be manipulated. If you look at the news today, you could pick out 10 items in which you have one agency trying to push its agenda on others, and they're not using facts, but they're stating their opinion on facts. So we've got to be careful with that. Facts also often depend on the language we use to express them, and that is, when we are giving factual representation, we have to be specific, we need to be precise, and we need to use the language that best represents the facts. When people use vague or imprecise language, typically it's because they don't know what they're talking about or they are trying to deceive you, which is why they aren't being more precise about things. There are 6 standards we use to determine if something is a fact or not, and we're going to talk about these 6. The first one is verifiability. Verifiability means that data can be confirmed by more than one source. This source can be a reference source, like a dictionary, a record, such as a marriage license, or a standard, such as Greenwich Mean Time. Another source could be the testimony of an expert or eyewitness. Data can also be verified by the senses of the witness, by agreements among people, measurements, and by documentation. And from here, I am just going to, I've been playing around a little bit, so I'm just going to see what I can do. I thought there were a few tools that I could use, and maybe this will show up later on in the recording. Anyways, I'm just messing around here. So what is inference? Good question, and we'll explore how inference differs from fact. But when we infer something, we imagine, reason, guess, surmise, speculate, estimate, predict, or conclude. Inferring simply or essentially is building a bridge between what we know and what we don't know. In essence, it's making an educated guess. And we use inferences throughout our lives. We call it making an educated guess. And drawing inferences from facts. When we interpret the meaning of facts, we often draw inferences about them. How many inferences can you make from the following facts? Again, what I want you to do is just stop the recording here and then write down your answer for the following 3 things. What could you infer from the following facts? How do we distinguish inference from fact? Primarily through good writing, because good writing clearly distinguishes inferences from facts, description from interpretation. When you're conducting good business writing, you need to be specific about what is a verifiable evidenced fact and what is, in my opinion. Good writing goes into detail. It gets very specific. The challenge of descriptive writing is to give the factual details, not just your inferences about them. Usually we find specific details in what is most conspicuous. Indeed, they can be so obvious that we do not even realize we are seeing them. Sometimes specifics are ignored because they may seem too obvious, yet this is exactly where the facts lie. The practice of stating the obvious also helps us draw sounder inferences. When we go back to look for the evidence behind our first impression, we may discover we made a hasty conclusion. So, no rushing to generalizations, which is typically what we want to do. Facts are known, evidenced, measured, verifiable things. Inferences are our guess from information as to what the fact of a matter is. Questions. What are your questions based upon the material we've just covered? What do you have whirling around in your head? Please take them to the Colleague Cafe. I will meet you there, and feel free to answer one another's questions. Thank you.